President Trump has cast himself as a friend of the American farmer, but some farmers say they're frustrated with him because his trade war has affected sales of soybeans and other agricultural products to China. Now the president is facing backlash from a group of farmers over another issue. The president promised to defend the renewable fuel standard, which requires refineries to put a certain amount of biofuels, such as corn-based ethanol, into their fuels. But the Trump administration has granted waivers to 31 small refineries, some of which are owned by big oil companies. Those exemptions have reduced the demand for ethanol, and 15 ethanol plants have shut down. It's also contributed to a drop in corn prices. All of this is not sitting too well with Republican Senator Charles Grassley, who represents Iowa, the largest ethanol-producing state in the country.
They screwed us when when they issued 31 waivers compared to less than 10 waivers during all the Obama years, and we thought that was bad. What's really bad isn't a waiver, it's that it's being granted to people that really aren't hardship, and that's where it ought to be identified.
President Trump tried to ease the tension today, tweeting that his administration is planning a giant package related to ethanol and that farmers will be happy with it. He didn't say what the giant package might be. NBC's Vaughn Hilliard has been talking with corn farmers and ethanol producers in Iowa. He joins us now from the town of Shenandoah. Let's talk a little bit more about this. Vaughn, it's a complicated issue to understand. Tell me how these waivers affect corn producers and ethanol producers.
Yeah, you head out this way, Allie, across the Midwest, and there's pretty much a consensus of opposition to these waivers, because the ones that are taking the fall as a result of this are not only the corn ethanol plants like the one behind us, which is owned by Green Plains. They have 13 different ethanol plants around the region. They say that they've lost $150 million alone in just the last year because of these exemptions. But you also look at just last week, there was an Indiana-based corn ethanol plant that shut down. Just yesterday, one up in Minnesota announced its closure because of that, the decrease in demand for the ethanol. And what you see is that ripple effect going out into the farms. We talked to one farmer yesterday, Dwayne Astrop, who told us that, look, he voted for the president back in 2016. He wants to vote for him again in 2020, believing at one point that he was there to defend the American farmer, taking on the trade battle with China, which he supported. He said, but this one makes him scratch his head, because that renewable fuel standard you talked about was a campaign promise that President Trump made back in 2015 and 2016 to the agricultural industry out here in the region. I want to introduce you, though, to Todd Becker. He's the CEO of this corn ethanol plant that I was referencing. This is a little bit of what he told us in our conversation about the impact of these waivers.
In the last 12 months, our company has lost over $150 million making ethanol under this EPA policy. And so that's what we're working with the administration to say, hey, this has gone too far. This is not just hurting us. So we just happen to be a corporate entity that can withstand this. But there's a lot of ethanol refineries now that are closing across the United States that are owned by farmers.
Here, why have you guys lost money?
We've lost money because, number one, our demand has been destroyed by these small refinery exemptions. And that's really where we're focusing with the administration to say, hey, look, you've got to fix this, right? Your EPA went too far.
You're looking at real financial consequences here, especially in these towns of a few thousand people. When you have a corn ethanol plant closed, at this plant behind us, there's 50 folk here, and they say that there's another 400 that rely on the money that comes out of this corn ethanol plant. If you look at this, Allie, from a purely political standpoint here, this is of concern to President Trump, and that's why he tweeted this morning that he'd be coming out with, quote, a great package for those in the ethanol industry, because if you look, it was the farmers that you could argue are his strongest base of support. Even as this trade war unfolded, they continue to say that they stood by the president. If you look at the likes of Michigan, of Minnesota, of Wisconsin, of Iowa, if the Democrats are able to even chip off some of that support from the rural parts of these states, including farmers, including those working in the agricultural industry, the president may be at risk of losing these Midwestern states. Amy Klobuchar is one Democrat, really been the most outspoken trying to take on this issue specifically. Allie?
Vaughn, thank you. It's a complicated story. You've helped us understand it a lot better. Vaughn Hilliard for us in Shenandoah.